Hello, my name is Jim Bratton, and I represent National Safety Compliance. We've put together this program to provide you with some basic information about OSHA, OSHA standards, and other health and safety issues as they apply to various workplaces. In this video, I'll tell you a little of the history behind OSHA, how OSHA protects employees through what is known as standards, some of the OSHA record-keeping requirements, how OSHA enforces the standards, what you can do to comply with OSHA standards, and a few other things you should know about OSHA. In 1970, Congress passed the Occupational Safety and Health Act. The purpose of this legislation was to establish a nationwide federal program to protect almost the entire workforce from job-related death, injury, and illness. Before this act, job safety and health issues were mainly decided by individual companies. Without any standardized regulations or guidelines, employee health and safety was hit and miss. While some companies and industries worked to create a safe workplace, others felt it was a financial burden and was unnecessary. This was the backdrop for the creation of OSHA. But there were many events that led to the Occupational Safety and Health Act, starting with the Industrial Revolution in the 1800s, to child labor, to mass immigration, to labor movements, and more. Employee health and safety has been an evolving issue. Workplace health and safety is still evolving today as new technologies, increased information, and a growing and shifting workforce create the need for new, revised, and/or additional standards and guidelines. OSHA is the leading force in the protection of the U.S. workforce. After the passage of the Occupational Safety and Health Act, the first step the Secretary of Labor took was to establish within the Labor Department, effective April 28, 1971, a special agency to administer the act. This agency is what we know of today as the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA. This new agency took on the difficult task of creating from scratch a program that would meet the legislative intent of the act. The purposes of the act are quite comprehensive and include the establishment of occupational safety and health standards, carrying out inspections and investigations, ensuring the maintenance of record-keeping by employers on occupational injuries and illnesses, requiring reporting by employers of work-related deaths, and conducting research relating to occupational safety and health. OSHA uses three basic strategies to help employers and employees reduce injuries, illnesses, and deaths on the job. 1. OSHA uses enforcement that is strong, fair, and effective. 2. They provide outreach, education, and compliance assistance. And 3. Utilize partnerships, alliances, and other cooperative and voluntary programs. Since OSHA's creation in 1971, there has been substantial progress in increased occupational health and safety. Work-related fatality rates have been historically low in recent years. OSHA has helped to cut workplace fatalities by more than 60% and occupational injury and illness rates by 40%. At the same time, U.S. employment has increased from 56 million employees to more than 135 million employees. While OSHA continues to make strides in occupational health and safety, significant hazards and unsafe conditions still exist in U.S. workplaces. Each year, almost 5,200 people die from workplace injuries in the private sector. Nearly 4.3 million people suffer non-fatal workplace injuries and illnesses. And the cost of such injuries and illnesses total more than $156 billion. Employers are to be familiar with and comply with standards applicable to their establishments. Employers must also ensure that employees have and use personal protective equipment when required for safety and health. Each workplace may have different requirements, and different areas within one workplace may require different standards. As an employer, it is your responsibility to know what standards apply. The Occupational Safety and Health Act covers private sector employers and their employees in the 50 states and certain territories and jurisdictions under federal authority. The OSH Act covers employers and employees either directly through federal OSHA or through an OSHA-approved state program. Section 18 of the OSH Act encourages states to develop and operate their own job safety and health programs. There are currently 22 states and jurisdictions operating complete state plans covering both the private sector and state and local government employees. OSHA approves and monitors state plans, and states must set job safety and health standards that are at least as effective as comparable federal standards. Most states adopt standards identical to federal ones. All employers are required by law to comply with all Code of Federal Regulations CFR promulgated under the OSH Act. In addition, some agencies, both federal and state, may incorporate OSHA regulations into their own rules and regulations, whereupon these agencies then may enforce the occupational safety and health portions of their requirements. Examples of federal agencies that commonly use and enforce OSHA requirements with their own statutes and regulations are the U.S. Department of Transportation and the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. The Act, among other things, directed the Secretary of Labor to issue regulations to require employers to maintain records on workplace injuries and illnesses. This section is known as CFR 1904, Recording and Reporting Occupational Injuries and Illnesses. You can learn more about this standard in the workbook. The Secretary of Labor was also directed to compile accurate statistics on occupational injuries and illnesses and to make periodic reports on such occurrences. The responsibility for collecting statistics on occupational injuries and illnesses was delegated to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. OSHA is also assigned the task of enforcing the standards they implement. Enforcement is accomplished through the use of worksite inspections and, if necessary, imposing citations, penalties, or both. OSHA has a specific standard, CFR 1903, Inspections, Citations, and Proposed Penalties, that define these topics. Workplace inspections and investigations are conducted by OSHA compliance officers, who are trained safety and health professionals. Inspections are almost always done without advance notice. Some special situations do occur in which OSHA might provide advance notice of their inspection. These special circumstances usually involve situations OSHA has been notified that an eminent dangerous condition is present and needs to be corrected as soon as possible, or that there has been a fatality. If an employer refuses to admit an OSHA compliance officer, or if an employer attempts to interfere with the inspection, the Occupational Safety and Health Act permits appropriate legal action, such as obtaining a warrant to inspect. It is best to cooperate with OSHA completely when being inspected. Their goal should be your goal, the health and safety of workers. Working cooperatively will help reach that goal. After an inspection, the compliance officer discusses with the employer all unsafe or unhealthful conditions observed during the inspection and indicates all apparent violations for which he or she may issue or recommend a citation and a proposed. After the compliance officer reports their findings, the area director determines whether he or she will issue citations and/or propose penalties. So what can you do to avoid receiving citations and penalties? While striving to provide a safe and healthy workplace, you must also have established written programs that cover most OSHA standards. The most important standards all have requirements that companies have written programs in place. These standards include Hazard Communication 29 CFR 1910.1200, Respiratory Protection 1910.134, Emergency Action Plans 1910.38, Fire Prevention Plans 1910.39, Lockout Tagout 1910.147, and Bloodborne Pathogens 1910.1030. Other standards may also require written programs. Training is possibly the most important issue for companies to address. OSHA imposes training and education requirements for almost all standards. Uniform documentation of all training will help you determine who needs additional training. determine when it is time to update training, and evaluate employee work performance. When reviewing your training program, you should compare your current training program to OSHA's training requirements. Employers must include OSHA-required information as it pertains to that specific topic. We hope this short informational video on OSHA has been helpful.